passion for fingerboarding began over a quarter of a century ago. In 1998, Tech Deck released their famed Tech Deck toys. Everyone in my middle school had one, and I decided I had to get one too. I used to go to my friend's house, we'd skate all day, and then we'd go inside and fingerboard and film. So you can see here's some of the footage from back then. Two videos released on VHS that completely altered our own perception of what fingerboarding was and could be. Those two videos were Fingers of Fury, starring Damien Bernadet, Tony Pauthex, Matt Johnson, and Darin Langhorst. And the other video was Flying Fingers, which solely featured Matt Johnson. These two videos showed us that there was so much more that was possible with fingerboarding, whether it was making realistic looking obstacles that Matt Johnson and Darin Langhorst did, or all those tricks that we saw that we could not do or even imagine could be done up until that point. These two videos were monumental for us, as well as the rest of the fingerboarding community back then. Up until this point, fingerboarding was basically an empty canvas. Yes, there was the Powell Peralta video feature Primitive, which featured Lance Mountain fingerboarding in a sink in front of the rest of the Powell Peralta team. Unlike today, where fingerboarding is pervasive across all the different social media platforms, such as Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, etc., prior to the two VHS tapes being released, it was extremely difficult to see any video example of fingerboarding. This brought an interesting thought into my mind. I wanted to highlight some of the early fingerboard styles and showcase what fingerboarding was like without any external influences outside of skateboarding. I want to shed light on the early fingerboard styles that were prevalent during the old days of fingerboarding. And what better way to start than with skateboard legend and fingerboard pioneer Lance Mountain. To me, the interesting part is how smooth Lance rides during this part. Even as a realistic push right there, he smoothly maneuvers around the corners of the sink. If you notice his airs, what he does is he takes his middle finger and hooks it underneath, and then takes his ring finger and uses that instead. He's not beholden to the two finger style that we've all become accustomed to. He does a lot of lip tricks, a lot of inverts, and some airs like a backside air. Very reminiscent of the skateboard style at the time. He even does a little 50-50 transfer between the two sinks. All in all, just such a great, smooth style, and I wish there was more footage of Lance Mountain fingerboarding, to be honest. All right, my friends, next up we have Close-Up Fingerboards founder Damien Bernadet and Tony Pauthex, both of which are featured in the video that they released in 1996 for their FSB finger skateboard brand. So if you look at Damien's style, it's heavily influenced by his own skateboarding. And in fact, in any video that they have released, they always have some sick clips of them skateboarding. You can tell that Damien and Tony both are heavily influenced by each other in their fingerboarding styles. They both do this kind of looping or scooping motion when they do their tricks. And then what they do after they scoop is they'll manipulate the board after they do the initial ollie. Another thing I'd like to note is look at how short the board is, especially in comparison to modern fingerboards. And this is probably due to the fact that they designed these boards based off of their own fingerboarding style and what felt comfortable to them. And if you think about it this way, having a shorter deck would actually help when you're trying to do tricks from that scooping motion. So it makes perfect sense that the board is a little bit shorter. And now we'll look at some footage from Tony Pauthex. Again, as I mentioned before, you'll notice that he also has that looping style that you saw with Damien. And this tells me that they both were heavily influenced by each other. You can also see the advantage of having that looping style. And it's that he's easily able to do massive trick transfers. And that's what's so impressive about this. He uses this technique with that huge kickflip between the bathtub and the sink, and then follows it right up with a massive frontside 180 kickflip too. Damien Bernadet and Tony Pauthex are great examples of a style that was very prevalent among early fingerboarders, which is that scooping style. And that's the big takeaway I have here, is that people develop their own ways to fingerboard on their own without having much influence besides those around them. All right, next up, guys, we have Matt Johnson, who right away starts off with a big ollie to 360 native spin. I think the big takeaway here is that Matt Johnson was able to switch hard flip, I think, before anybody else in the world could on a fingerboard. I was always super influenced by Matt Johnson. The variations that he did of switch and nollie tricks just blew my mind back then. One thing you'll notice is that he is using a board that does not have any grip tape on it, which was super common actually back then. Most likely this board was made by Somerville International, and you'll see that it's kind of like a plexiglass-like material for the deck. And here's the thing I always idolize Matt for, is this park. This is such an epic park right there. And look at this combo here. Switch backside tail, shove it back, lip, shove it out. And then a switch hard flip back tail. Okay, these are tricks that people even nowadays struggle to do. Tray flip, nose grind, nollie flip out. Man, he was just so ahead of his time. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Matt Johnson this past summer, and he told me so many great stories about his experience fingerboarding and his influence there. And one thing that you'll note, he actually really likes to fingerboard while lying down. And you'll see that in the Fingers of Fury part that he released with Tech Deck. Matt was such a pioneer in fingerboarding. He influenced so many people, including myself, to expand my own viewpoint of what was possible in fingerboarding. I didn't even realize nollie and switch tricks were really a thing until I watched his fingerboarding. And next up, we have none other than Darin Langhorst. Darin's style was ultra realistic and super smooth. One thing you'll notice with his style is that he removed the grip tape on his fingerboards. And I think this is because prior to Tech Deck, almost all fingerboards really didn't have any grip tape on them natively. And despite having no grip tape, he still does his tricks super realistic looking. I've always loved his spot selection and trick choice. It just felt like you were watching a skateboarder actually skate a real skate spot. And man, that ledge was like my dream. I always wanted to fingerboard that spot. I think Darin's style holds up to this day. He just has such a smooth, clean, fast, and realistic style. And it's just so smooth and buttery. Without a doubt, Darin is in my top 5 of favorite fingerboarders of all time. In the early days of the online English-speaking fingerboard community, there was one name you would almost always hear all the old fingerboarders say they loved, and that was Denis Stimac. Denis actually had a website called Skateboard Naked that was pretty popular, and sometimes he'd throw up some fingerboard clips as well. Watching fingerboard footage from Denis from the early 90s all the way to the mid 2000s is just a real treat. Like Darin, he does such realistic tricks, keeps them nice and low, and has a really nice flow that goes with his riding style. When he does heel flips, he does these pressure heel flip variants that you'll see some fingerboards do nowadays. And that's where you press down onto the fingerboard deck and then lift your hand up in a certain way. And the edge of the board will kind of like stick to your finger. And as you lift up, it will disconnect from it and cause the heel flip rotation. I don't think there is many people that could pull off that technique better than Denis Stimac, man. Back in the day, so many of us would just check to see if Skateboard Naked had a new fingerboard post like every single day. And when he did, it made all of our collective days. He was just such a smooth, clean fingerboarder, and he had one of the best styles in the game at that point. And with that, I'll just stay silent for the next couple of minutes while we enjoy some Denis Stimac footage. And next up, we have a fingerboarder whose name will forever be linked with professional fingerboarding. When you think of a pro fingerboarder, the first name is probably this one. Yes, that's right. It's the original fingerboard style god. It's Martin Winkler. We have some footage here from him fingerboarding in the 1990s, probably around 1991. He is just so smooth. He's the original fingerboard style god. I cannot think of a single fingerboarder to this day that can flow a vert ramp or any transition in the same way that Martin can. Even back in 1991, his style was just so smooth and beautiful. And you'll see that he rides both untucked and tucked fingerboard styles. I'm pretty sure that when he started riding the semi-untucked way, when he flows through ramps, influenced so many fingerboarders. He might have been the genesis of that style. I know I started doing the tuck style after seeing him fingerboard in person and was just like, man, that just looks so good. I'm gonna copy that. I know those tier lists are really popular nowadays, and if I ever did one of the best fingerboarder of all time, I can assure you that Martin would be above S tier. He is God tier. He is the one true fingerboard god, the most influential of all time. Martin is he, and he is who he is. Just an absolute legend as well. But as you guys can see, there's so many variants in fingerboard styles. You saw some looping styles that Damien Bernadet and Tony Pauthex had. You had some crazy tech stuff that Matt Johnson was able to throw out there. And then you had the ultra realistic styles of Denis Stimac, Darin Langhorst, and Martin Winkler. All in all, such a diverse group of riders that did not have any other influences really besides that one person that I had at the beginning of the video, and that is Lance Mountain. Shout out to Lance Mountain for making this hobby so visible to the world with Future Primitive. Thank you all for watching. I know it's been a bit since I've made a video, so I really wanted to put together something that is high quality. If you thought it was high quality and want to see more videos like this, please like the video, comment on it, let me know what you think, and also share it with your friends. If you want to see more videos like this, I do have the history of fingerboarding playlist, and I actually have quite a few videos on the early days of fingerboarding there. So be sure to check that out. It's probably going to be like 5 hours of video in total that you can watch. Just toss it on before you go to bed, fall asleep to it. That's what I do with YouTube oftentimes. Oh yeah, and if you really like this content and don't want to miss any future videos I have, be sure to subscribe and tap that notification bell. That way YouTube will tell you the instant I release a new video. They'll give you a nice little notification on your phone, or when you get onto your YouTube home screen, you'll see my videos there. As always, guys, much love. Go shred, be positive, and have fun.